Virtually all modern day crops have been genetically modified in some way. Now, that's not a bad thing, even though genetic modification has a very bad reputation and it is very misunderstood. But ever since humans have been farming, we've essentially been genetically modifying crops through things like traditional breeding methods. Now, naturally, the argument always comes up, well, yeah, but traditional breeding is different from GMO. Well, yes, that is true, because these are all different ways that humans can genetically modify crops. And only some of them are considered to be GMO. That's just the way that term has been defined, and it only includes a few of many different ways humans genetically modify crops. I like this graphic because it has a little bit more detail. Some of these older traditional breeding methods, also mutagenesis, these are ways that we modify crops that are going to affect tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of genes. Something like mutagenesis, where you're using radiation to induce random mutations. This is a very random process. The outcomes are unknown. Whereas these newer methods that are deemed GMO are much more efficient, much more precise, only affect 1 to 3 genes, and so the outcomes are more controlled. In addition to these more modern methods being more precise and more controlled, they are also regulated much more highly than these older methods. So these older methods of genetically modifying crops are not considered to be GMO, therefore they are allowed to be certified organic. For example, there are thousands of mutant crops out there that, like I said, have been developed using radiation to induce random mutations. Now, since these are not considered GMO, they can be organic certified. So yes, virtually all modern day crops have been genetically modified in some way. It's just that certain methods have been deemed GMO. This is why I say that definition isn't very science-based, because it is only talking about these more modern ways of genetically modifying crops, which are more precise, are more efficient, and are much more regulated. So in explaining that virtually all modern day crops have been genetically modified, that doesn't mean that all of these things are the same. They are not, and there's some very important differences. However, this argument gets used a lot of times to imply that these older methods are somehow safer, when that's not the case. The end product is what matters, regardless of what method is being used to genetically modify something, and the safety of the end product is what matters. There are many plants that have naturally evolved that are very poisonous to humans, so a natural genetic modification is not inherently any safer than one of these ways that is considered GMO. The end product is what matters, and that's why testing is done on the end product to ensure that it is safe. And again, there is a lot more testing done on these ones that are considered GMO.